Welcome into another edition of the Stingray Show, everybody. I am your host, Stephen Ray, and we have a really good show on tap for you today. We're going to be joined today by former LSU offensive lineman back in 2011 during the game of the century, T-Bob Hebert. We're also going to discuss all of the issues surrounding the coaching carousel from this past weekend. Obviously, Gus Malzhan canned down at Auburn, and Kevin Sumlin was canned out at Arizona. Plus, we're also going to be joined by the one and only Dan Wolken from the USA Today to get his take on the coaching carousel as well. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as we review what happened this past weekend and give you our thoughts about the coaching carousel only on the Stingray Show.
The Dogs and Stingray are coming for you!
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Good afternoon, Mr. Feinbaum. Stingray here, and I'm about to shoot the bull with you like all the Auburn students do down at Auburn. Worst defense ever!
So without further ado, here is the biggest Alabama going for the field goal. The kick is up. It is away. It is no good. Chris Davis bringing it out of the end zone. Oh, he's got blockers. Chris Davis up the sideline. Here he goes.
Here we go, guys. Dobbs back to pass. Launching the ball. Jennings, he's got it. Jennings, he's got it. Touchdown, Tennessee. They shocked the Dogs in Sanford Stadium. Are you kidding me? My God almighty. What an epic way for the Tennessee-Georgia rivalry to end this game. What a play. Wow. It is Tuesday afternoon, and I hope everybody's doing quite well on this Tuesday. We obviously had some huge breaking news over this past weekend, and believe it or not, we had some shocking news that Gus Malzhan was officially let go down on the plains at Auburn after 8 seasons down there. He was 68-34 in 8 seasons at Auburn, but he was 8-17 combined against Alabama, LSU, and Georgia. That is not a good way to start off things and end things at Auburn. So without further ado, let me go ahead and bring in my co-host Heath to get his reaction about all things college football. Heath, how are you doing today, sir? Sorry, man. Go ahead. How are you doing today?
I said I was having a quick lunch. I was having some crackers. I hadn't had anything to eat today, brother.
Well, I tell you what, man. Are you surprised by the firing of Gus Malzhan at Auburn, especially after they won in Starkville? Now, if they had lost in Starkville Saturday night, a game that you were at, I could see where they'd go, okay, let's go ahead and make a coaching change. But with the win, I was really surprised Sunday morning when they went on ahead and made the announcement.
Yeah, just think if Mississippi State had a good game.
Yes.
We would have probably had the firing before Gus came off the field, kind of like Brett Bielema there at Arkansas years ago.
Yes.
No, it was very shocking to let me rephrase that. It was slightly shocking, to say the least. Here on the show, we have asked to talk to Gus Malzhan, and we've got some funny return emails from our request saying that they have shut down all media availability. And so that was back in October, Stephen, as you well know. Our audience does it.
Yes.
But back in October, people are shutting down Gus for interviews, and we thought that was odd. Those requests were turned down back then, and so we didn't understand it. Stephen, I think this decision was made months ago over on the Plains. I think this decision was made by the big boosters that no matter what happened, Gus wasn't coming back.
Yeah.
And so, I think if Gus would have won some big games, maybe if he beat Alabama, maybe if he upset Texas A&M down the stretch, there might have been a tiny chance that he was coming back. But I believe this decision was made by the Auburn boosters months ago. And, that's very unfortunate. Stephen, Mark Richt was fired because his name wasn't Nick Saban.
Yes.
I believe Gus Malzhan got fired because his name's not Nick Saban. I think we're seeing a lot of coaches get fired because they're not named Nick Saban.
Yes.
And, we had somebody on the show last week, and I can't remember who said it. It might have been 2 weeks ago. But we're at a time where the greatest coach of all time is coaching the greatest dynasty of all time in the history of college football. And yet other teams will not accept that fact. And, hey, it's okay. I mean, Gus was losing every year like Tennessee does to Nick Saban. But I think this is a bad mistake by Auburn. I understand. But, I don't think 8-4, people will disagree with me. That's okay. It's America. You can have your opinion, and your opinion can be wrong, just like mine can be. But, for Auburn to sit there and say 8-4 is not acceptable, and, an 8-4 season is not acceptable here at Auburn. Well, if it's followed up by 11-1 season, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I don't understand. I don't understand Auburn's thinking on this. Now, I will say this: if they have somebody lined up and they know they're getting somebody, okay, let's make the move. But if you did this I've been hearing the rumors of Kevin Steele. A lot of the big boosters want Kevin Steele. Auburn, you're going way in the wrong direction, extremely fast.
Yeah.
Let's call it what it is. If Gene Chizik didn't have Cam Newton, he would have been gone in 2 seasons.
Yeah.
So, this is crazy of what's going on at Auburn. The Gus, all the tires are flat. It's calling the record. Let's move out the Gus bus. So I don't know what's going to happen. A lot of crazy names are being associated with that job, and I love the coaching carousel. It's my favorite time of year in football. So there's a lot of fun names being associated. So we'll find out what's going to happen with that job. But Auburn just self-imploded their signing class that's going to happen here this week. They just self-imploded it. That's only on Auburn. If you're going to fire Gus, fire him on Thursday.
Yes. And here's my thing, too. You brought up a good point about the signing day issue there. But, I mean, you fire Gus. Why do you fire Gus if you don't have somebody lined up already? Because here's the deal. They already announced today that they're putting out a search committee. Well, here's the thing. What if all of the candidates that you go after, like a Hugh Freeze, Napier, Sarkisian, Clark, what if they all say, no, I think I've changed my mind, I don't want to go to Auburn? Then you're looking at a potential Tennessee where they had to go to number 9 with Jeremy Pruitt down the list, and you see where Jeremy Pruitt is right now in Tennessee. So that's my issue is, okay, well, if you're going to fire Gus, have somebody going ahead and sign on the dotted line already when Gus is moving out, not, okay, we're going to fire him, put in an interim, and then we will go search for a candidate.
Gus is going to land somewhere and be Gus will land somewhere and be successful soon. I got a feeling Gus will probably take a year off. I wouldn't be shocked if he takes 2 years off and just kind of relaxes a little bit and counts that $21 million daily. I would. But
yes,
Gus is going to resurface. I would not be shocked if he ends up in the ACC. I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up in the SEC again.
right.
I wouldn't be shocked if we see Gus come back soon. I mean, things are, we're looking good for Semi Pittman over at Arkansas, and I'm a huge fan of Semi Pittman. But I heard a lot of Arkansas fans extremely, overly upset last week and this week with Sam Pittman.
Yes.
I think that's crazy that they are. I think it's a joke that they are. But we've seen crazier things happen in the SEC. If Sam Pittman's probably going to lose one, if not both coordinators this year.
Yes.
So with that being said, could Gus be at Arkansas 2 years from now? It's very possible. It's very possible.
All right, man. Well, let's go ahead and talk about the other big news this past weekend. Earlier on Friday, this past Friday, Arizona State absolutely ran this guy out of Arizona. Arizona State knocked off their in-state rival, the Wildcats of Arizona, 70-7. And because of that, Kevin Sumlin was officially fired after 3 seasons with Arizona. 9-20 was his record there in Tempe. Man, I got to tell you, I'm wondering why Sumlin, after all the success he had with Johnny Football, why he just cannot get it together.
Well, he had huge success with Case Keenum at Houston before he came to A&M. I was a massive, massive Kevin Sumlin fan. When Sylvester Cruden was let go, I was really hoping Mississippi State would bring in Kevin Sumlin.
Yes.
Then they brought in Dan Mullen. Yeah, and, of course, we didn't know as much about Dan Mullen, but, Kevin Sumlin, with athletes, he can really make some things happen. But, look at A&M, and after Johnny Football, he could not keep any quarterback on that roster. He couldn't keep any of them happy. They were all transferring out. So I don't know what happened. But I do know this about Kevin Sumlin. The guy's got to be the absolute best interviewer in America.
Yes.
When he's negotiating his contract, he had that bulletproof made golden parachute at A&M. And so when they fired him, I can't remember how many millions they gave him. I want to say it was, 15, 20 million. It might have been a little bit more. But they cut him a check when they fired him. And then later that week, he signed a contract with Arizona and got a signing bonus, if I'm not mistaken, to come over to the Wildcats. So, I mean, it was a big deal. He got a huge buyout there with Arizona as well. So,
yes,
Kevin Sumlin is doing. Hey, he may not be winning football games, but he's doing better than the rest of us.
Yes.
So, with that being said, Kevin Sumlin can run an incredible offense. He really can. But if you look when he was at Texas A&M, I mean, do you remember who his offensive coordinator was?
Cliff Kingsbury was
That's
one
exactly
of them.
Right. So let me tell you, you got Johnny Football and Cliff Kingsbury to work with. Stephen, we could have coached that team. We could have coached that team to at least the Liberty Bowl.
Yes. Well, Heath, are you ready to bring on our first guest of the day?
Absolutely.
Well, now let me just go ahead and say to introduce this guy, a lot of people don't like him. Some people have even called him a troll. But I will have to say he has always been very respectful and very nice to me. So without further ado, and I want to thank him for doing that, without further ado, here is our special guest for the Stingray Show today, Mr. Dan Wolken. Dan, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Good afternoon. How are you guys?
Doing good.
Good.
I got you. Listen, So, first off, let me just go ahead and ask you, what are your thoughts about the Gus Malzahn situation down at Auburn? Were you surprised by the news when it broke Sunday morning?
Yeah, I was a little surprised. Certainly, look, Auburn is a place where he's been under pressure for a long time, and the fan base there was kind of hot and cold with Gus many times over the years, and he had been on the hot seat before. But just given the amount of money to fire him and not having an obvious candidate lined up ready to go, they weren't falling off the cliff. Obviously, they weren't great this year, but
Right.
it wasn't a disaster. So I thought they would just kind of let it ride. And also, I'd heard, the athletic director would prefer just go into next year, see what happens when things are more normal. But that's the thing about a place like Auburn. You get one or two big boosters who are willing to put up the kind of money that it was going to take to get rid of him, and they wanted the change to happen, and it's hard to fight against that.
Yes.
Well, Dan, I had some technical difficulties on my side where you were coming up. I didn't get to hear the first part of it, but thank you for coming back on the show, brother. We're always grateful to have you here. Matter of fact, the last time you were here, we had phenomenal ratings and reviews. So thank you for coming back.
Good. No problem.
Hey, we're talking about Gus here. Have you heard any other names? I know we've all heard the Kevin Stills, and we've heard Hugh Freeze. We hear the normal names, and of course the names that always pop up. But is there any outside names that you've heard recently today about the Auburn job?
Well, I think, look, you got to remember this is still kind of in the very early stage. Let me just say that when they decided to fire him, Auburn did not have like an organized search ready to go. So it's been a little bit of drinking out of a fire hose since Sunday, and there's also it's a little bit of the Wild West. You've got some boosters over here kind of doing their thing. You've got the athletic director hiring a search firm, and you've got the president. Like there's all these different groups kind of that running separate searches, at least initially. So now what they're going to have to eventually do is kind of come together, figure out what they want to go, who the actual options are, and work from there. We've heard early names because the early names are kind of obvious, but I don't think it's limited just to that. I think they're going to have to really put their heads together and gauge a lot of different options, not just the obvious ones.
Dan, let me ask you real quick from your side of things and kind of shed a light on the reporter side. When a coaching carousel comes around, talk about, you've been on the inside of this, talking to athletic directors and university presidents and things of that sort. Talk about how things go from your side, kind of a step-by-step process of how you actually get the job done and sometimes get the scoop on these stories.
Well, I wouldn't say that there's necessarily a great process. I think it's kind of you're just talking to a lot of people constantly. You're trying to share information in some cases back and forth with people who are in various parts of this conversation, whether that's the coaching side, the administrative side, the agent side, all that stuff. And so some of it's not going to be accurate. There's a lot of rumors that are not necessarily true. You got to kind of pick and choose and use your best reporting skills to cross-reference information to make sure that it's correct. And I think, at least for me, I've always been one who, look, there's certain people who they'll get when a deal is done, they'll get a text from somebody who says it's done. I've always tried to operate on not trying to be on somebody else's timetable. That when I know something's happening, whether or not people want it out there or not, that I'm going to go for it. So that's kind of where I'm at. And it's just, sometimes it's luck. You text or call the right person at exactly the right time. It's not a real organized process, I can tell you that.
Gotcha.
Well, let's go on ahead and move to another topic. You were really vocal about the firing of Kevin Sumlin. What are your thoughts about that? And why do you think Kevin Sumlin just cannot seem to find the right fit?
Yeah, well, I think that firing Kevin Sumlin for Arizona was something they didn't want to do, but it was something that they basically had to do. It was 12 straight losses. It was really going badly. A lot of the games, especially of late, were not even close. Look, I think Kevin, if you go back to when he got fired at Texas A&M, what he should have done is he should have taken a year off and focused on, his family, his physical health, his mental health. I think anytime a coach in a really high stress job, like an SEC job, and they've been dealing for a couple years with, are they going to get fired and all that stuff. It's a lot to handle. It's a lot to deal with, and I think that for a lot of these guys, they want to stay in the game, they want to stay visible, they want that next job to try to prove that they can do it. But I also think that can spiral on you as well. And I think sometimes the better move is to just take a break, take a breath, get healthy. I mean, these jobs are really stressful, and come back refreshed, and not put yourself in a position where you're going to get even more worn down.
Right. When we were doing our pre-production last night, Stephen and I were talking. Stephen brought up something that I didn't know, and I didn't do my homework on this. You're a Vandy grad, correct?
Yeah, I went to school there a long time ago now, but I did go to school there.
Long time for all of us, brother. But with that, let's talk about the new head coach at Vanderbilt. As an alum, how do you feel about Clark Lee?
Well, I think it was the obvious hire. I think that you're talking about somebody who's got a background at a private school where finding the right academic fit is important. Right. So that translates to Vanderbilt. He's the defensive coordinator of a program that's going to make the playoff for the second year out of the last three. And he is an alum, right? So he's from there. He's got an attachment to the program. So I just think Vanderbilt looked at all the factors and looked at other really good people. But I just think that this is the one that made the most sense on every level. And, they feel like he's certainly qualified to do it. And we'll see. I don't ever really know if these kinds of things are going to work out well or not. He's been a defensive coordinator at Notre Dame. That's a job other people have done well before and have gone on to head coaching jobs, and it's not worked out.
Right.
He may be different. He may be the same. You don't know. It's a tough job. Vanderbilt's a really tough job, but he certainly understands what he's getting into.
Well, let me just follow up with another story that's going on at Vanderbilt. What are your thoughts about Sarah Fuller and that whole situation? Now, I've heard that some people are saying that it was good because it was COVID related. Other people are saying that it was a publicity stunt. How do you feel about that entire situation?
Yeah, I mean, look, if it's a publicity stunt, so what?
Right.
I don't think it hurts anybody. Vanderbilt was a winless football team who had not really had a very good season at all. They had struggled with COVID and a lot of other things on the field, and obviously had a coaching change mid-season. So, look, I think that you can take at face value the fact that they were looking for a kicker because they needed another kicker, and there was nobody on campus, and she was there, and she showed some ability to do certain things, and so they let her do it. But I also think they did get a good publicity bump out of it. It brought Vanderbilt into the consciousness of a lot of people who wouldn't even follow football to begin with. So I look at it as kind of a cool story. Like, I don't think there's a huge, big meaning to it. Like, I don't think you're going to see a bunch of women playing college football ever. But it was a neat story, and it's upsetting that some people tried to kind of make it turn it into a negative, because I don't think there was anything negative about it.
I got you. Yeah, have you talked to Sarah at all?
No, I haven't.
Okay. If you do, is there something that you would like to ask her?
Oh gosh, I hadn't even thought about that. Look, I think from her perspective, she I'm sure wanted to prove something to herself, and I don't think she ever. I don't think when she went to Vanderbilt she had any visions of playing on the football team.
Right.
But I do think finding out what makes somebody take on that chance, because I'm sure she knew that once she said yes to do that, or when she went out to attempt to do that, her life was going to change in a way.
Yeah.
And why was she willing to subject herself to, like I said, some of the ugly things that people have said? Is it worth it?
The craziness of that whole entire situation is when Sarah came out, I don't think a lot of people realized the situation Derek Mason was in. If I'm not mistaken, students have gone home for the holidays, but they're not coming back till January. So it wasn't like, we've heard every year we hear a story about a walk-on kicker who was playing, flag football the week before for his fraternity, is now going to be having kickoff duties for the school. That wasn't the case for Derek Mason. To my knowledge, the girls had just come back from the SEC soccer tournament, and I guess that was the only choices he had there on campus to find a kicker. Correct?
Yeah, that's my understanding. There just wasn't, there wasn't anybody available. We've seen stories before where somebody's running low on players for one reason or another, and you pick somebody out of a frat house, and it happens every now and then, and people love those kind of stories. Frankly, they generally love those kind of stories. This one was more divisive, but that kind of goes to, there's a culture war component to it that's kind of an outgrowth of a lot of things going on in the country, and I think that's why that's why some people wanted to turn it into something controversial.
Yes. Well, let me just also get your thoughts real quick about the issue at Texas with Tom Herman coming back in 2021. What are your thoughts on that? Do you feel like it's a good move? And do you feel like Texas will ever get back to the level that they think that they can get to?
So I think that even though it was messy and awkward, I think Texas was in a position where if they could get interest from Urban Meyer, they needed to pursue that, because he's really the only slam dunk out there. And
yes,
they went and asked, and it didn't go very far. And so then at that point, you have to determine, is it worth the massive cost in a pandemic when you've laid people off, furloughed, salary cuts, all that, to pay Tom Herman not to coach next year? Now, look, this may have negative long-term consequences.
yes.
He may next year flame out, and he's a lame duck coach, and they have just delayed the inevitable and probably sacrificed another year of recruiting. That's certainly a possible outcome to this. But on the other hand, who are you going to go get? That's always the question. When you go fire somebody, you have to understand what level of coach you're going to get. And I just think in this particular year, they weren't comfortable with that uncertainty. Texas is a school that's a complicated place for a lot of different reasons. They've got a lot of things to work on infrastructural wise on their campus to help the football program. But it does have a lot of appeal. It's the flagship university of a state that produces a ton of football players. It's a great place to live. It's a great place to go to school. It's an awesome campus and all that stuff. And they've obviously done it before, but you have to have the right person and the right personality in that job to leverage all the resources. And frankly, it's why Mac Brown was perfect for Texas for a long time. It just got stale, and he got lazy, and it just kind of stopped working. But if they could find kind of the next Mac Brown, who's 25 years younger, that'd be perfect. I just don't know who that is.
When we're talking about coaching carousel things, who in the media, one of your colleagues that you just are always astonished by their connections and know that they usually get it right on the coaching carousel? Who is someone that you really respect that figures things out?
Oh gosh, well look, that's kind of put me in a tough position, because if I start naming people, if I start naming people, I'm gonna forget some, and then I might have somebody mad at me. But look, I think when you are when you're in, look, I'm not I'm kind of a one man shop here. Like I'm gonna try to pick my spots. Let me put it that way. But you're always, like, when you're talking about coaching carousel stuff, you're always looking at the other major national outlets. Bruce Feldman at The Athletic, Pete Thamel at Yahoo, Adam Rittenberg and Mark Schlabach at ESPN. You're always sort of, because those are the big national outlets that you are competing with in a lot of ways. So, but there's a lot of people who are really good at this stuff, and I couldn't name them all.
Hey, a fun question, Dan. Every time we have a writer on here, they always mention Schlabach. Is he like the class favorite? I mean, is he like the life of the party? I mean, everyone seems to like that guy.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I've known Mark for years, and I mean, I've always gotten along. I get along well with just about everybody in the college football beat. So, and again, I mean, like I left out Brett McMurphy, Pat Forty. Like, there's just, everyone is good at this level, and but Schlabach's been around a long time. Has done a lot of great work. He cranks out those books like nobody else, and he's a great reporter.
I want to get to a controversial topic right now, and it's kind of controversial week in and week out in the SEC. Do you kind of feel like that the SEC and other conferences kind of instruct their officials to protect certain teams?
No. I mean, look, no is the answer to that. Okay. But I do think that you don't have to sit there and tell the officials who are on the field Saturday in Indianapolis that there's a lot at stake for Ohio State to win that game. I mean, you don't have to tell them that. I think they know that. But I also think officials are their job is to get it right. Their job is to do the best they can to get it right. Yes. And I think 99.99% are trying to call it as they see it. But you also, is it possible that there's implicit bias toward the Alabamas of the world, the Ohio States of the world, because they always win? I can't sit here and say that doesn't happen on occasion, or on a close call that somebody gets the benefit of the doubt. But that's officiating, right?
Yes.
It's a really hard job. You're trying to make these decisions. I think about myself, like, I play tennis, and in tennis and amateur tennis, you're calling your own lines. So somebody hits a ball and it's coming really fast, and you're looking at it, and it's really hard to tell whether it's in or out, right? But you've got to make a call. And in tennis, what they tell you is, if you're not sure, then you have to call it in. Well, what's the default for somebody if it's a 50-50 call, but they know they have to make a call?
Yes.
What do they default to? It's not in or out. It's one team or another. So that's the problem, and that's why there's always going to be human error in officiating.
Dan, being here outside of Memphis, Tennessee, a lot of Vol fans are kind of getting antsy. Are we going to see another coaching change 2020 up on Rocky Top?
I'd be surprised at this point if they make a change. It's expensive. It's Phil Fulmer is the AD. Do you want him running another search? Right now, I think what they'll do is they'll make staff changes and try to see how that looks next year. And obviously, they've gone backwards. It's been a terrible year. Is there a scenario, though, where they come back next season, the quarterback situation's better, you're not dealing with the pandemic, that you've got a real offseason, and the Tennessee shows significant improvement? I think that's in play. But the question of whether Jeremy Pruitt's going to lift that program to where they hope, that's looking more and more doubtful. But I think they'll give it another year and see what happens.
And my last question for you is this. We always try to ask everybody this as a parting question because it's fun. What is the wildest or craziest recruiting story that you have ever heard?
And you can leave the names of the schools and the individuals out, or you can add them if you like.
Well, I don't, I don't really cover recruiting per se. Right. And I think back to the 80s, like if you talk to basketball coaches about what recruiting was like in the 80s, it was the wild, wild west.
Yes.
And you're talking about like coaches who would get, like if somebody was going to go take a visit to UNLV and you were a coach at, whatever other school, like they'd send their assistant to Las Vegas and then to get on the plane with the recruit after the visit and like sit next to them on the way home. I heard a story, and I'm going to leave the schools out of it, but basically like a player at a really prominent program at that time, like took a vehicle on a recruiting in a recruiting deal from a school he didn't go to. And, and like literally took a car and, and basically it's like, well, if you get turned in, then it's mutually assured destruction because basically, I've heard like coaches who or schools or whatever have paid recruits just for visits and, and then the visit happens, then they go somewhere else. But like, what are you going to do? Like, you're not going to get that money back.
Yes.
So yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff I've heard, but I don't know how much specifics I should get into.
My last question for you. Well, going back to the 80s and recruiting, I would love to sit down and hear, because you were here in Memphis at one time like I am, I'd love to hear any Dana Kirk stories you heard from back in the day in the 80s, because they're legendary here, urban legends, if you will, of Dana Kirk and what he did and what Denny Crum did at Louisville and how nasty that got. But I'd love to hear any kind of crazy story you ever heard about that one day. But my last question.
Yeah, I wasn't around then, but I've always thought Dana Kirk would be an interesting 30 for 30 subject or documentary subject because I think what a lot of people don't realize is like imagine if, and we've seen a little bit of this with the FBI investigation, but like Dana Kirk was on trial, and had like boosters testifying against him in a real trial, and he was convicted and he essentially went to jail. And I think like just imagine if that happened now, that a coach of a top 10 team or a top 10 program, a guy who'd been in the Final Four, like was literally on trial, like fighting for his freedom because of major embezzlement. Now, again, the money's different now. Like back then, the money wasn't big enough, and maybe he had to do some side hustle stuff that was illegal, or at least he felt like. And maybe you don't have to do that now because these guys make $3-4 million a year. But I mean, just imagine what that would be like in this day and age if you had that situation. And and of course, there's always been these rumors around Memphis that Dana tanked the Final Four game in 1985 when Memphis was playing Villanova, the Villanova team that ended up winning the Miracle National Championship.
Right.
and again, I don't know that. Let me put it this way: the people who were associated with that game, who are still around, they swear it's not true, that's not what happened. But there's a lot of people, and maybe it's just making an excuse for why they lost. There's a lot of people who say Dana, made such crazy decisions and weird, told Vincent Askew not to shoot the ball or whatever, that they thought maybe he tanked it for gambling reasons. Again,
yes,
I don't know that anyone will ever know, but I've always thought he would be a fascinating 30 for 30 subject.
Absolutely. Well, Dan, my last question to you is this: we miss you here in Memphis. What's your favorite Memphis restaurant that you miss?
Oh, favorite Memphis restaurant. Well, this is kind of maybe an odd answer, but just in terms of when I lived there, I'd say probably once a week, I would go down to the Half Shell.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, and I loved their gumbo. I'd always go down there and get the gumbo and a salad down at the Half Shell. So it was pretty close to where I lived, out in East Memphis, and so that was kind of my spot.
Well, brother, we probably cross paths at least twice a week because I used to eat there all the time.
Absolutely.
Well, Dan, look, man, we really want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today.
Yeah.
And we hope that you will join us again. And before we let you go, is there anything else that you would like to plug or tell people how they can find you?
I think people know how to find me. So just keep on reading. So.
Okay. All right, man. Well, if we don't talk to you before then, happy holidays and Merry Christmas.
All right. Thanks. Same to you.
Thanks, man.
Bye-bye.
All right. That was an awesome interview. And like I said, man, we really want to thank him for coming on.
Yeah, I think a lot of people know where Dan is on Twitter. Dan has a lot of followers and has a lot of haters, but no matter what it is, Dan does a great job. And he's always been a great friend to this show. And I wouldn't say anything bad about that.
And he's always been real respectful of me too. So,
there you go.
Yeah.
It's how you treat people.
What now?
As I said, it's all about how you treat people.
Yes. All right, man. Well, are you ready? Because we're actually about 30 minutes away from our next guest. He was supposed to come on at 2, but he had a family issue that he had to do, so he bumped it to 2:30. So basically, I'm going to go ahead and let's talk about some other highlights. But before we do this,
let's tease everybody a little bit. Our next guest, a very popular media member down on the Bayou.
Yes.
And he also played in the game of the century, the game of the Armageddon game, the famous LSU Alabama game that we got to see 2 versions of in one season, and both were leading to a national championship.
So, and that was actually, the first one was won by LSU, the second one was won by Alabama and Nick Saban. But Heath, we talked about Gus, we talked about Kevin Sumlin, but there was another coach that got canned on Sunday, that we haven't talked about and nobody's kind of talking about. Lovie Smith was actually fired by Illinois. This was in 5 seasons. He only won 17 games. They went to 1 bowl game in his tenure, and that was last year, and they have had 9 straight losing seasons for the Illini.
Yeah, the Illinois job is a really hard gig. I remember in the early 2000s, oh gosh, I need multiple choice. They had a great quarterback there in the early 2000s. He had a little bit of Heisman love and hype.
Yes.
Of course, I don't think he was a finalist, but since the early 2000s, that program has been sputtering, and now it's bottomed out. And Lovie Smith took the Bears, the Chicago Bears, the Monsters of the Midway, took the Bears to the Super Bowl. They lost to Peyton Manning in that game where it was raining. But Lovie is a phenomenal coach, and then he took a really bad job in Illinois. I think he wanted to stay close home for family reasons, and that gig came available, and that's a hard gig. Lovie Smith's a great coach, but Illinois is just a hard gig. And you got to look at the other Big Ten schools that are around you, and also some Big 12 schools as well. I mean, you get Nebraska, you got K-State, you got Michigan, you've got Ohio State. You have a lot of people around you poaching all of your talent. It's kind of like Illinois is kind of like, I'm trying to think of something in the SEC. It's kind of like Tennessee a little bit.
Yes.
Close to some big cities, but you've got a lot of big schools around you poaching all of your talent. And all those schools are kind of running high right now, winning a lot of ball games and going to bowl games every year. So it's really hard for Illinois to get off. That's going to be a hard job. I don't know who Illinois turns to, but that's going to be a very difficult job for anyone to take over the Illini. That's tough sledding there.
And especially this year, because the Illini have actually turned into a round ball team, as they are currently ranked in this AP poll this week at number 13 with a record of 4-2. So they are now becoming a round ball school now that the football has kind of dropped off a little bit. And the round ball would be basketball.
Oh, yeah.
So they are currently ranked 13th right now. The Illini are in the current AP poll. So really look for them to start transitioning into basketball and as soon as they can find, a coach on the football field. Well, Heath, let me just go ahead and say that this game turned out to be an exciting football game last Friday night. The San Jose State Spartans actually came from behind and knocked off Nevada there in Las Vegas, and now San Jose State, they are in Las Vegas because of the COVID issues. They will now host Boise State this weekend for the Mountain West Conference Championship game. And San Jose State is currently 6-0, and San Jose State is ranked for the first time since 2012. When they finished that season 11-2.
Who was the coach back in 2012?
I have no clue.
Hey, for the folks at home watching, Google that and put that in the comments for us. You're our crack research staff. I don't remember who was the coach in 2012, but man, I know if I'm not Rocky Long served as coach at one time.
Yes.
There at San Jose State. That I don't know, but gosh,
yes.
There's a team here that pops up out of nowhere, and they kind of become the media sweetheart. It's going to be Illinois this year. It was Illinois this year, or excuse me, Indiana this year. It was Indiana. We all wanted to see Indiana kind of walk away with the Big Ten. That just made for another great 2020 crazy story. But San Jose State coming alive, making some things happen. I would love to see San Jose State take on the winner of the Pac-10 for a regular season game, because I'm really upset that the Big Ten and the Pac-10 are only playing 6-7 games, and they might get to skate in to the playoff. Dan Mullen took a hot shot at Ohio State this past week in a press conference, and Dan was his little high-pitched voice. I guess you get an award for not playing as many games this year. You get a bye.
Yep.
But But by the way, my Dan Mullen voice, my Mickey Mouse voice are the exact same. So
Yes. Well, man, let's go in and talk. Now, let me ask this. Let me ask you this. This is a little nugget for you. Who is the only quarterback this year to have a Heisman Trophy performance but not throw one touchdown pass?
Oh, Stephen, I have no idea.
Mac Jones, Alabama, did not throw a single touchdown pass against Arkansas, and his team won 52-3 against Arkansas. How crazy of a stat is that?
That is a little crazy. I think majority of Alabama fans would agree with me. Devontae Smith's the best player on that team.
Yes.
He's better than Najee. He's better than Jones. Devontae, you could take Najee off and it would take a small step back, but you would still have production at the running game. I think you could take Mac Jones. It would be a step back, but I think you'd still have production in the passing game and offense. You take Devontae out, especially after they've already had losses early in the season to the wide receiving core, but you take Devontae out, that's a different looking offense altogether. So I really think Devontae is the best player on the Alabama football team. And if I had a Heisman vote, Devontae is at the very tip top. He gets vote number one for my.
Do you just want me to just go in and say this about the last time Arkansas was able to knock off Alabama? Would you like to guess?
Give me a second here. John L. Smith didn't do it. Brett Bielema didn't do it. I don't believe Petrino did it. So it would have to go back to Houston Nutt. He did it multiple times. So, gosh, Houston Nutt was coaching there in, I believe, before 07. I'm going to say 05, 04, 05.
The last win of Arkansas was the year that I graduated high school in 2006.
Oh, I was close.
Arkansas has now lost 13 straight to Alabama.
Wow. There's kids that are graduating high school this year, and the last time that's happened was when they were in pre-kindergarten, pre-K.
Yes.
Wow. They basically gone their whole life never seen it. Because a 4-year-old can't remember a football game.
And I'm gonna make this argument. Even if Sammy Pittman does stay the coach at Arkansas, I think that streak goes up to 15 before Arkansas has a chance to beat them.
I would go on the opposite side of that coin and say as long as Nick Saban's there, it's not going to happen.
Right. Yes. All right, man. Next up is going to be a blowout. And actually, this game was close for a little while there, but then it was just way too much of JT Daniels and the Georgia Bulldogs. What did you think about the Georgia-Missouri game this past weekend?
Nothing really stood out to me in that game. I just thought that I thought business kind of carried out as normal. I wasn't overly shocked with anything that happened in that game. The only thing I would say that is the running game for Georgia, they really don't have a go-to back right now. That's the only thing that really kind of stood out to me. There's some concerns at wide receiver depth for Georgia, but Mizzou's building. Mizzou's going to be a good team. I mean, you got a freshman quarterback. You got some experienced leaders run the ball for Mizzou, but Mizzou is building, and Georgia is trying to compete for national titles.
Yes.
So they're in two different phases of where they are right now. So I'm not overly shocked by much that happened in that game. What about you?
This was the 7th straight loss that Missouri has surrendered to Georgia. The last Missouri win was in 2013, and that was 1 year after they joined the conference.
Wow.
I mean, so this has been dominated by the University of Georgia there. I'm sorry to say so, MIZ fans.
Yeah, and I remember that very first SEC game for Mizzou. They had to play Georgia, and Georgia was talking about grown man football over there,
Right.
And this is the SEC. This is grown man football. The next year, Missouri returned that favor and showed what kind of grown men they were. I see Tom in the comments. He was saying about Juice Williams. Tom, I'm not thinking about Juice. I do remember Juice. It wasn't Juice that I'm thinking about. It was someone in the early 2000s. And if I get a second, Glenn had it?
Is it Zamir White?
Oh, no, Zamir. I talked about that Georgia didn't really have a premier running back right now to get the ball to. I don't think Zamir White's the best running back on that team. Talking to multiple Georgia fans, they don't think he's the guy. Here, let me pull up my notes real quick. Steve, go to our next highlight as I pull up my notes. But I know a couple of Georgia fans who are all about. I'm trying to think of the backup there at Georgia. He got injured here a couple of weeks ago.
Glenn would know because he's a huge Georgia fan, man. He and I talk a lot, and he is a huge Georgia fan.
Let me see if I can. The mid.
Milton, yeah.
Yeah, Kendall Milton. Georgia fans I talk to are love Kendall Milton, and they think he has a higher ceiling than Zamir
Yes.
due to Zamir's knee injuries. But they're a huge fan of Milton. They think Milton's going to be the running back going into 2021. He's going to be the marquee guy, and Zamir is going to kind of be the backup if Zamir sticks around.
I got you. Well, man, let's go on to another game, and I've actually got a little bit of audio in this highlight, so we can talk about it up until that, and then I want to play the audio, and then we'll come back to it. But this one, and you and I talked about this on Friday's show, that this one might actually be a trap game for Coastal Carolina. And, buddy, they nearly escaped Troy, Alabama with the win. And our friend, Mr. Will Komeyer, was actually on the call of this game. And actually, Coastal Carolina went up 14-3. And then all of a sudden you think, oh, man, they're about to pull away. And then, of course, here Troy takes the lead. And let's listen to Mr. Kromeyer's call.
3rd and long. Let's see what McCall can do. He's getting hit, and it's picked off. Troy with the interception. And McCall, a rare mistake by Grayson McCall. We can put a stop to it if they can get a touchdown here. Free will look toward the end zone. He's got a man, and he's got a touchdown. Troy has just taken the lead. That's Trey Eford. A touchdown toss from Free with $1:20 left, and the Trojans with their first lead of the afternoon.
However, they would not keep the lead as Coastal Carolina scored with 35 seconds left to escape Troy with the 42-38 win. With the win, Coastal Carolina becomes the first Sun Belt team in history to be ranked in the top 10. This week in the AP poll, they are currently ranked 9th.
Yeah. Willie K, our good friend Will Komeyer on that call. Will has been a fixture there for SEC Network Plus. He's also been on ESPN Plus and ESPN3. But Will's been getting a lot of games. Been done several on ESPN2 as well. But Will was on the show. If I'm not mistaken, he said that Will did 1,700 games. Is that correct? He's caught 1,700 games?
Yes.
So, Will is a cagey veteran. But with that being said, Coastal, that was so close. Troy was right there. Although Coastal won the game and stays undefeated, that really hurt their chances of kind of sliding up into the top 8 and getting some serious traction. They're going to be borderline New Year's 6 bowl game. They're going to need some teams in front of them to lose to make that happen. But again, I'm an underdog kind of guy. I always kind of pull for the underdog. I would love to see Coastal in there. Matter of fact, I was talking to a Georgia fan very late last night, and he was upset that the Vanderbilt game had been canceled with Georgia, and they're trying to look at other teams. Colorado State, he said, was one of the big ones, and I said I would love to see Georgia a schedule. Coastal Carolina. I know Coastal has their championship game this weekend, but
Yes.
I think that would help the SEC. I think that would help Coastal if they won. It's a win-win situation if you get into it, but if you lose, it's all over for Coastal. And,
Yes.
It only helps the SEC in that scenario. But man, what a great situation to even think about. But 2020 has been crazy, but I'm so ready to see some upsets here in this bowl season, and even on the championship weekend we get coming up on Saturday.
Yes.
I'd like to see Coastal win out and stay undefeated, but again, I'm an underdog kind of guy. So Coastal's a two-edged sword of that underdog. If they lose, I kind of cheer for the team that beat them, but I also kind of want to see Coastal and the Chanticleers to keep the ball rolling and stay undefeated.
I agree. Well, man, let me just go ahead and say, did you watch the beatdown that the North Carolina Tar Heels put on this team this past weekend?
Yeah, I'll listen to that. I'll listen to that game in the car a little bit, and I was shocked and not shocked. I was not shocked that Mac Brown won that game. Not shocked at all. I talked about that on the show this past week. These are the games that Mac Brown's living at beating these teams. But, man, to just destroy them and embarrass them, that's just crazy. And you know what else is crazy? Those ugly black uniforms that Miami wore.
I know.
Georgia has bad luck in black uniforms. Mississippi State's got bad luck in black uniforms. Miami, you got bad luck in black uniforms. Don't ever wear them again.
And that snapped a 12-game losing streak for North Carolina against AP-ranked top 10 teams, which dates back to 2004 when they knocked off Miami again that year.
Dude, say what you want to about Mac Brown. All he does is win. That's all he does. He just wins.
Yep. All right, man. Well, let's go ahead and talk about another SEC game real quick. Let me just go ahead and get your thoughts about the whole Sarah Fuller situation up there at Vandy.
Yeah, I understand both sides of the situation. Some people think that it's a publicity stunt. Other people enjoy the story, but, when you're looking at a winless season, you're 0 for the season, anything's good. Anything can be good. And so, to kind of build team morale, they brought on a girl to kick. I just thought about this. The movie Necessary Roughness, a famous early 90s football movie, same thing. They were winless. They brought in a girl kicker. The girl kicker was Kathy Ireland in the movie, but, kind of the same situation.
Yes.
Kind of built team morale, and some guys on the team thought they were the laughing joke of football. And I remember Scott Bateman in the movie said, "We already are the laughing stock of football." So, Vandy's just had a terrible year. We all know Vandy's a hard gig. It's going to be a tough gig for Clark Lee to make that happen. But, again, I'm an underdog kind of guy. It's fun when Vandy wins. Even if it's one game here or there, it's fun when Vandy wins. But when Vandy is good and goes bowling, it's one of the best stories because it's like everyone's scared that they're going to lose to Vanderbilt, and we all know it's going to happen. When James Franklin was there, we knew it was going to happen. When Derek Mason was there early in his tenure, we knew he was going to beat Tennessee, multiple years in a row, and he did. So with that being said, I love Vanderbilt. I love seeing it happen. But the whole Sarah Fuller situation, you have the right to your opinion on any side of the issue you want to take. I think it's a great story.
Yes. I agree with that. Well, man, by the way, the Vandy-Georgia game has been canceled this year. So this was the first winless season for Vandy in program history.
That's actually kind of shocking. Stephen, I know we talked about this, me and you personally off the show, but you basically can add 3, if not 4 wins. Every SEC team can add 3 to 4 wins to the win total this year. And if you do that, take Gus Malzhan. How many games did they win this year? 6?
6.
You add 3 to that, or 4. He's won 9 or 10 football games, the non-conference games that they would be playing. So, you look at Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. I mean, he won, 5?
Yeah.
So, you add 3 or 4 to that, an 8 or 9 win Ole Miss team, he's coach of the year.
Yes.
Yes. Look at Sidney Pittman at Arkansas. What did they win? 3 or 4?
Yeah, 3.
3. So yeah, I mean, they could be at 6 wins or 7 wins. What's Coach Drink at Mizzou? Aren't they at 5 wins?
Yep.
So I mean, you talk about a 9-win team from that Missouri team from last year. That's amazing. So that's the craziness that we're dealing with. But with Vandy, you could add 3 or 4 wins. Does he keep his job? Probably. Derek Mason keeps his job for another year. So, this pandemic really messed with coaches and the buyouts. And Tom, you're right. Kurt Kittner is the guy I was thinking of from Illinois, the quarterback from the early 2000s. I looked it up, and you posted it there in the messages. So, Tom, you win free oxygen for the rest of the day.
Hey, you're kind of frozen on my end, so do you mind refreshing just for a second?
Yeah, man.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're not frozen out there on the interspace. So we're having just a slight technical issue on Heath's end, but I will pull him back up. And now, there we go. You're good now, brother.
Yeah, looking – well, I wouldn't ask if you're looking good, but I'm not frozen?
No, not frozen at all, period. All right,
That's
man.
cool.
Well,
I got a personal question for you real quick. Have you ever seen the movie Frozen? I know you don't have kids.
No, never seen it. Don't want to see it.
Yeah, I'm like at least 3 digits in, 100-something times. Yeah, I'm there.
I got you. Well, man, let's go to what I'm calling the shocker of the actual weekend, and I'm still in shock over this because everybody has already written off Coach O this season. And then he pulls off the miracle down there in the swamp when they knock off number 6 Florida 37-34. Were you surprised at how bad Florida looked Saturday?
Yes and no. Florida was definitely looking for the SEC championship game. They were looking forward to Bama. There's no doubt in my mind. And if you disagree with that, you're an idiot. Florida was, they've already wrapped up the East. They already knew who they were playing. And they were playing, if they beat Bama, they know they're going to be in the playoff playing for a national championship. So, Florida was thinking nothing but Bama all week. And LSU ruined that party. And good for LSU. LSU sometimes their fans, not only the players or the coaches. Oh, yeah, there it is. But their fans cry a little bit, saying it's not fair that we got to play Florida every year, our set rival in the East. That's not fair. Yeah, it is. You're LSU. You win national championships. You should be playing teams that compete and play for national championships. No, you don't get Vandy. No, you don't. That's not going to happen. So, with that being said, good for LSU. Good for this rivalry. This game is always fun. It's always fun to watch this game. So, with that being said, props to Coach O. Massive props to the players that were there because, hey, there were some big-time players that opted out of this game before game week this week. There's several guys that opted out.
Yes.
And so for LSU to come in there, already shorthanded, super young team, and guys opting out very late in the season, and you walk into a foggy swamp and kick the longest field goal through that crazy fog to win, man, we'll be talking about this game for years.
And by the way, I want to play this soundbite for all of the people out there that didn't hear this. Here is Coach Mullen on the loss to LSU.
It is what it is. We got to play next week. What we can control is playing for an SEC championship, and we're doing that next week. So, tonight's game is what it is, and we got to get prepared for next week's championship game. Obviously, you just look. All the things we did, you can't win doing what we did tonight. No matter what's going on, who you're playing. We lose the turnover battle. We turn it over 3 times, -3 turnover ratio. We don't score touchdowns in the red zone. We can't make these stops when we need to defensively, and we lose the special teams part of the game. So, man, it's not a very complicated deal. Give our guys credit. Kept battling, kept fighting. Thought our guys played hard, and just give them credit. They kind of seemed to make the plays they needed to make to win, and we kind of made every play you needed them to lose.
Dude, he drives me insane doing that.
Dan is the master at deflecting. There's not, and I'm not exaggerating. No one deflects better than Dan Mullen.
Yes.
He deflects better than any coach in America. He does. Dan took a lot of heat and should take a lot of heat about the shoe being thrown, and he's like, well, he wasn't being disrespectful. He wasn't doing it to taunt. He wasn't doing it. He threw a freaking shoe. Man,
yes.
What is that ever right to do during a game in society, at the mall, Christmas shopping, at church? When is it ever an appropriate time to throw a shoe?
Yes. He was then asked, Coach Mullen, about the playoff situation with a 2-loss Florida team make the playoff. Here's what Coach Mullen had to say about that.
I don't have a vote on that. I'm not in the room. You know what I mean? I know we've played 10 games, right? So I guess probably the best thing to do would have been to play less games, because you seem to get rewarded for not playing this year in college football. But I tell you what, I give our guys a lot of credit, the competitors our guys are, that they want to go out there and compete every single week. That we face a lot of injuries, we face a lot of adversity, we've played shorthanded a lot of games. And then we have no control. We have no control over anything but whether or not we win next week. That's all we can control. If we win next week, we're SEC champs. I can't control more than that. That is all we control. And good question, I guess, for the committee and for everything. That's their deal. What's important, But I'll tell you what, I'm proud of our guys of how they faced through everything. Play a 10-game SEC schedule, played with beat up, played with shorthanded a bunch of these games this year. I'm really proud of our guys how they've battled to go do that. So we're going to worry about the SEC championship game next week, and beyond that, whatever anybody wants to vote us to do, then we'll see what is next.
Absolutely no way that I feel like that a 2-loss Florida team could and will get in the 14 playoff. Sorry, Dan.
Yeah, I do agree a little bit of what he says. Ohio State every year lays an egg. Even when Urban Meyer was there, they would always lay an egg, whether it be against Michigan State or Iowa or whoever. And they usually have an ugly loss every year. Yes. Ohio State does. So I completely agree with Dan and what he said. It's not like Dan and the Gators got a break of playing Florida International this year, or Georgia Southern for homecoming, or whoever else. So again, you talk about an 8-win team, and we could add 3 to 4 wins to that. If Dan Mullen is an 11-win team this year, there's a good possibility that they're going to be fine. And they would be playing Florida State. They've been playing some other teams, so tough break for the Gators. But you know what? You literally threw the game away. Who in your right mind thinks it's ever okay to throw a shoe? Don't take up for him, Dan. Keep him accountable. You can't throw shoes.
Well, with that being said, let's go on ahead and bring in our second guest, a former LSU player, and we actually talked about it just a little bit ago. He was let me just go on ahead and roll the highlights here. He was SEC Academic Honor Roll in 2008. Let me move this. He played center, right guard, and left guard for the Tigers during the 2011 National Championship game and the game of the century. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let me go ahead and bring in our very special guest, Mr. T-Bob Hebert. T-Bob, how are you doing today?
Yo, what's going on, y'all? Oh, wait, hold on. Is my mic on? Okay, yeah. What's up?
Yes.
You're good.
What's going on? I'm just chilling. This is my little girl, Alice.
Awesome.
See, we got some Christmas spirit in the background.
Yeah.
Stingray, you look incredible, man. I don't think
Thank
we've
you.
done work together in a long time, but I've been following your journey online, and it's been very inspiring to myself and very awesome. And
Thank you.
yeah, man, it's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Well, first off, can you tell our viewers what you're doing now?
Yeah, I host a morning show in South Louisiana. It's called Off the Bench. We're like 7 to 10 every AM, and yeah, we just talk a lot of LSU. If anybody wants to check it out, the YouTube channel is actually probably the best way. We have Off the Bench, which is all LSU, and then Off the Bench Overtime, which is kind of more Saints and stuff. But yeah, just radio, radio and covering Louisiana sports. Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
T-Bob, I had a quick question for you. How many kids do you got?
I have 2 little girls. This is my oldest, and she is about to be 3 in February. And then I have an 8-month-old little girl. But it's a great part about my job is, I'm kind of like up there like 5 a.m. to like noon or something. So then I get to come home in the afternoon. My wife gets to go work, and I just get to hang out with the chillins all day. So it's very rewarding. I actually get to spend a lot of time with her. It's awesome.
Hey, brother, I got 4 kids. And,
You're a psychopath. Oh my God. I cannot imagine 4 kids.
Yeah. Here's the crazy thing, T-Bob. I've had 2 in my 40s. So, yeah, I know. Yeah. I had one at 40 and another one at 42. So, yeah, it's a little bit crazy. But with that being said, I had 2 under the age of 2, and then 5 years later, I did it again. So,
wow.
So I feel your pain. So don't worry about all that going on back there. I just want to say this, being a girl dad myself, I got 2 girls and 2 boys. I talked to Stephen about it earlier. You're going to watch Frozen and Little Mermaid, and you're going to know all the songs. You're going to sing them in the car, and it's going to be awesome. So
I mean, look, I guess I'm already just a bit of a nerd because I didn't have a kid back in 2013 when Frozen 1 came out, and that actually didn't stop me from memorizing the entire Frozen 1 album. So getting to see Frozen 2 in theaters with my baby daughter was like one of the premier experiences of my life. It's the first thing she really locked in and watched. And yeah, thanks to Disney Plus, I have now seen every Disney princess movie approximately 1,000 times. The pandemic, Moana was our constant companion during the pandemic this summer.
That's not a bad one. You know what? Here you go, T-Bob. This is the question I never thought I was going to ask you today, and probably the one you weren't going to ever thought you were going to get. Your favorite Disney princess movie?
Oh, okay. Favorite Disney princess or favorite Disney princess movie?
But princess movie.
Okay.
Oh, let's do both. What's your favorite princess and what's your favorite princess movie?
Ooh, well, I'm trying to think. Oh, no, there he goes. Okay, as far as movies go, I mean, look, Frozen 2, in terms of scale, is pretty hard to beat. I appreciate the old movies. I think they're beautiful, the more classic princess movies, but having little girls that I want to feel a bit more like, like they can be like the hero of the story. I do like some of these modern approaches in Frozen 2. You got Anna and Elsa out there kicking ass. Elsa's power levels are out of control. She is the fifth element. And the Frozen 2 soundtrack actually gets better and better and better the more I listen to it. And I guess I'm a big fan of Moana as well. Out of the more classics, I really like Beauty and the Beast, I always have, and I really like Belle a lot, and I like how she loves to read and everything. But there is a concerning amount of Stockholm syndrome kind of in that movie, where like, did she fall in love with her kidnapper? I never found the Beast to be especially sweet, so like some of these movies when viewed as an adult go a bit more wonky, but. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I should have a more creative answer, but no, I think it's Anna and Elsa and Frozen 2 and Moana, some of the new ones actually.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Merida. I don't know if you get to see that one yet.
Okay, so I love Merida. That would be one like as a character, yes. Yeah. For some reason with Brave, I love the first half, and I always kind of fall off in the second half. I don't know why.
Well, I love that Merida. She's like, no, I'm going to shoot for my own hand. I'm going to pick who I want to pick.
Exactly. So, and that's another thing. I appreciate them having those kind of role models. Oh, here's what I was thinking, actually. You know what I love? I'm a big Tangled guy. I think Tangled is fantastic with Mandy Moore and Rapunzel as Rapunzel, and my daughter's been real into Tangled as well. So that would be up there. Stingray, you missed all the exciting Disney princess.
No, I was here, man. I was here.
Hey, Steven, where's my name tag at? It went away.
I got you.
You see my name tag, Steven?
No, you refreshed and what now?
Yeah, my name tag. What happened to it?
Yeah, you got a name tag, but you refreshed and it cleared it for some reason.
All right, is that better?
So, T-Bob, man, well, thank you for taking time out of your busy day to join us. And real quick, I want to get your thoughts about the LSU Florida game from this past weekend. Were you surprised at how well LSU came out and played in that football game?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if you had looked just at everything you had seen up to this season, I don't think there was a lot of reason to expect any of that happen. What you witnessed happening, I don't think that it could have come at a more perfect time, especially because, like, I don't know how recognized it is nationally, but it's pretty hot down here in terms of pressure on the program. I mean, obviously, there's been losses, there's been opt-outs, there's reports of like a rift between the coaching staff and the players going back to the social justice marches of the summer. There's a Title IX investigation and a sexual assault. So there's like a lot, and now there's all kind of, and so last week, Eric Gilbert opts out, and that feels like this like straw that breaks the camel's back moment. And there's all kind of rumors about there's going to be like 8 opt-outs more, 12 opt-outs more, a bunch of guys leaving the program half season. So I don't know what's true or not. You just keep hearing all this crazy stuff. But it was at this time, the darkest time, when this win just came about. And it's a top 10 win on the road in a game where I think you played like 26 freshmen. And not just on special teams. Like, you had freshmen all over the – I mean, Kayshon Boutte, your best receiver, true freshman. Your quarterback, Max Johnson, true freshman. I mean, K. Jordan hit the field goal, was a sophomore. You had freshmen getting sacks, freshman. So it was kind of this sometimes I think a stock market analogy really applies, right? LSU stock was free-falling. Everybody's yelling, sell, sell, sell. Price is just plummeting. This was kind of a stabilization. This was a stem the bleeding. Investor confidence has been renewed somewhat. And then if that continues, a lot of that's going to come down to tomorrow, a massive signing day for LSU where Orgeron has his best class he's had yet lined up and committed. And then he's got some huge pieces that he could add, including the number one player in the nation right now, defensive tackle Mason Smith, who is in Cajun country. He is from Houma, Louisiana. Right. And so, like, if there has ever existed a must-get for Coach O, it is that game. So having this Florida game happen and having that experience as a proof to these young players that it is okay, it's not all broken. You will be okay, and you can win. And then having that for the recruits as well, I mean, LSU could not have had it go any better, quite frankly. It was perfect for them. I don't know what sort of long-term impact it ends up having, but it definitely couldn't hurt. And hey, man, just as a fan, it was awesome. It was so much fun to watch. I mean, I overdo Star Wars analogies all the time, but Cade York lining up on the 50-yard line to kick the game winner in the fog, that was his Luke Skywalker trench run. It's like Han tells Luke, shots 1 in a million, kid. I mean, Cade York sat there, couldn't even see the field goal, turned off his targeting computer, trusted in the force, trusted in his leg, and freaking nailed it and blew up the Florida Death Star. It was just so awesome to watch, so much fun. And this LSU team stepped up in a lot of ways that they just had not previously this year. There were a bunch of times where they would have quit earlier this year, and they found a way to stay in that game and make it happen.
T-Bob, I'm glad you brought up the crazy stuff off the field. We're not a shock jock show. We're not going to try to catch you off guard or anything like that. But as a father, also as a former player, and all the craziness going on off the field, what are your personal thoughts on who should be held accountable for it?
So that is the big question, right? And I don't, in terms of accountability, I don't know, because I only know what everybody else knows, right? And publicly right now, everybody involved are taking very public stances where they're just basically saying, look, I did my job, right? And then they're kind of saying, I passed it up the ladder. I did this, I did that. So I don't exactly know. I know that Verge Osbury is a name that's come up a lot, who we have a relation with Verge. We have Verge on the show, but there is proof that he knew that some stuff may have been going on, but he says that's the thing. Everybody says that when they heard about it, they reported it. Now, was the reporting faulty? Did somebody above them mess up? Did they actually mess up? I don't know that I can adjudicate that from where we sit right now. I will say this: Tom Galligan, the LSU interim president, has hired a law firm, Hirsch Blackwell, to do just that. Independent law firm, come in here, look at everything. Where did the process go so wrong? Was there a concerted culture and effort to cover things up like domestic violence and sexual assault? Sadly, was it something more run-of-the-mill like you see all too much in college and college campuses nowadays? And then ultimately, what do you do to fix it and make sure that it never happens again? And I don't know what's going to play out. I don't know what that is going to find. I think ultimately that will tell us who should be held responsible. But really how I feel about it is, if nothing else, maybe LSU going through all this can bring some awareness to some of these issues like sexual assault on campus and domestic violence and how it should be handled at schools. And so that other victims don't have to go through similar experiences like some of the females at LSU have been describing.
Yeah. What is the thing that I've been hearing the most here recently is a lot of the big time money, the big boosters, the donors are not happy with Coach O. That was before the weekend, obviously.
Yeah.
But, we know that every SEC fan base is pretty much impatient. But, it's a little bit more there on the bayou. How is Coach O standing right now, and are they going to use all this off-the-field issue to say, hey, we got just cause here, thanks for the good times. We're not going to pay you a dime. Get out of here. Let's move on. Are you seeing a scenario like that starting to brew?
I mean, you hear rumors along those lines, but I don't know how much stock it is. There are those beyond them being like kind of message board rumors, right? And I think anytime when you have this much negative emotion surrounding a program, the amount of that emotion just creates more passion, more rumors, right? So I do have to be careful with like kind of running with anything. I will say this: if the Hirsch Blackwell report was to come back and like find this is an independent law firm adjudicating all this. If they were to find Coach O responsible, absolutely, I think that action would be taken. If they were said like he is responsible for what went wrong, I don't think that's going to happen, given what I know about the situation. But yeah, I mean that would move him. Outside of that, though, no. I mean, I think the fact that this is even a conversation really shows how wrong 2020 has gone after the perfect 2019 for LSU. But I am definitely someone who has consistently been on the he is more safe than not side of the equation.
Okay.
But we'll see. Like I said, the tough part about all this is we just don't know what we don't know. And so we got to kind of watch this process play out along with everybody else.
Well, let's go back to your playing days for a second. Obviously, you were in one of the biggest games in I would say, this century, and that was the 2011 number 1 versus number 2 Alabama LSU in Tuscaloosa. T-Bob, please tell us what the hype was going into that game for you guys and what it was like playing on the road, hostile environment versus Nick Saban and Alabama.
Yeah, it was wild, man. It was definitely unique for a bunch of reasons. First off, the 2-week run-up, it gave it almost like a Super Bowl sort of feel.
Right.
The record-setting nature and what both teams have been doing that season. And really, really what it comes down to is just the NFL talent on the field, right? You had, I think, 40-something NFL players on Alabama and LSU's 2 deep. Wow. So I was one of the much less talented members of these rosters, but yeah, man, and maybe it wasn't 2 deep, maybe it was the whole rosters, but either way, just NFL talent all over the field, and it was just a night where you could just feel the electricity. That was also right after Alabama had increased the capacity of their stadium, so it was definitely, I think, the second loudest stadium environment I've ever been in, and just every single piece had so much pressure riding on it because you knew the whole season was there, and so in overtime, when Alabama hit that game-winning kick, I mean, I just remember it was one of the single greatest feelings that I've ever had because it was this test that had been building up for so long, and then you finally had this kind of exhalation of relief. You had passed it. You had gone to their house, come out with a win, and now it was time to go finish the season.
T-Bob, talk about those 2 weeks.
And were you on?
Steven, can you hear me?
I can hear you. What's going on?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Leading up to that game, what was it like on campus? I mean, as a student and going to class, I mean, I'm sure professors were talking about it. I'm sure everybody was talking about it. But yeah, what was that like?
It's the great part about college football, and it's why I think no sport has suffered more in terms of just having stuff taken away from it than has college football because of COVID, because there's that like sense of community, right? Where everybody you see is kind of excited about the same thing. And so over those 2 weeks, as you're going to class and you're going around town, there is just like a low underlying buzz throughout everything that you do. And as that game approaches, that gets higher and higher and higher. And then you have this kind of crazy battle where you have to manage your own emotions and energy levels and expectations, where you have to try to not let that moment get too big as it's naturally just becoming huge. And it was just really exciting, man. I mean, that whole year being on a team going undefeated like that, like going around the city, going to pizza places, going out drinking, whatever. It was just incredible. I mean, everybody was so nice and just awesome. And like, I remember like a fun party memory after we won the SEC championship. It was the only night where like we ever went out in our tracksuits. Because yeah, whatever. That's like the ultimate, like, oh, you're on the football team move. But that night we were like, screw it, we're going out. And we ended up at a bar, and like we're sitting there standing on the bar pouring liquor over people while the fight song plays in the background. It was like that classic college football. You like a sit in the mountaintop kind of moment. And there were moments like that just interspersed throughout that entire year. But definitely in the run-up to the Alabama game, it was a lot of anxiety. And then anytime you have that much anxiety and you pass that test, the relief afterwards is one of the greatest feelings you can have.
Yeah, absolutely.
This play right here should have been a touchdown run that should have been the walk-off. And then Michael Ford barely stepped out of bounds.
T-Bob, talking about your playing days, what if you could play today, what coach would you love to play for?
It's interesting. I don't know, because you know what? I don't think about head coaches like that, right? Like, interestingly enough, my favorite coach that I've ever had is Tommy Moffitt, my strength coach at LSU. It's actually kind of who you spend the most time with. But he also, I feel like, helped me grow the most on and off the field out of any coach that I've ever had. So, like, I can't really pretend to sit here and know other great strength coaches that I think would love to play for. But I guess this is all to say that sometimes the coaches that you really love to play for, the ones that you really want, aren't necessarily the head men. I always heard about guys like Pete Carroll where, they say his players loved him and all this thing. But I was also parts of teams where, publicly everybody thinks we love the coach and maybe you actually don't. And not that there's like ill will there, but a lot of times your head coach is your boss. It's like any other business, right? I mean, you may like your boss, but it is a different relationship. And you may hate your boss. You may love your boss, but it doesn't really matter. They're kind of your boss at the end of the day. And that power dynamic defines the relationship. And in my experience, that was how it was with my head coaches throughout my career. And obviously including Les Miles, who's my coach the whole time. I mean, that said, I thought Coach O did an awesome job recruiting me back in the day. Lane Kiffin seems like he's fun. For sure. And look, it's hard to deny. It's just hard to deny the attractiveness of Nick Saban at this point because of the program that he's built. It's just, I mean, if you are a major recruit, you have to consider going to Alabama, and it sucks, but that's just the reality of the world that we live in.
My famous question on the show is, and Stephen knows where I'm about to go with this, is what is the craziest? Well, I'm going to ask you two questions. What's your personal recruiting story that you can share with us? Tell us that one first. Just a fun story, whether it be with LSU, another school, or anything. But something funny that happened during the recruiting process for you personally.
I remember texting Coach Stacy Searles, who is our O-line coach, like a man's man. I remember texting him, "Good night, baby, I love you," when I was trying to text my high school girlfriend, who is now my wife. So I knew love at the time. Thank you very much. She is my wife and father of my two daughters. So, the I love you may be a little more accurate than a lot of high school relationships. But, yeah, I definitely got for a 17-year-old kid, that was a pretty embarrassing moment, texting your college football line coach that's trying to recruit you. "Good night, baby. I love you." It's pretty soft.
That's pretty solid.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's hilarious.
The famous question that I always ask is, you can leave the school names out or you can add them in there. It doesn't matter to us, either or. What is the absolute craziest recruiting story you have ever heard?
I don't know that I actually – Ben, maybe it's because I only really took like one official visit to LSU and then I just shut it down. I mean, whatever. I always knew I wanted to go to LSU. I used to use recruiting as an excuse to maybe go party in Athens some weekends in high school because I'd go on like officials to Georgia. So I don't know that I ever heard anything truly insane. I mean, there's some like kind of run of the mill stuff like, oh, they got this girl to sleep with this person or blah, blah, blah. Or like, and like there's like stuff like that. But yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I do know this. I must be pretty good at partying because they did used to let me host a lot of the recruits. And that just basically meant giving them beer and pizza and being like, look at college. Look at all of this. This can all be yours. Just come here to LSU.
Nice.
Man, that's awesome. All right, well, I've got two. Actually, the next two questions are going to be fun ones. Can you tell us your favorite Les Miles story? And then now that you're doing the media down there, can you tell us your favorite Coach O story?
Okay. My favorite O story is probably just the fact that Ole Miss O was a different beast than LSU O. LSU O is much more reserved and much more kind of like focused and everything else and mature and is obviously a much better coach. Ole Miss O was one of the most intense, unbridled people you ever met in your entire life. And I'll never forget going to a high school football camp where where we were doing like full 2-a-day practices with no pads on, like choke slamming kids, like crazy stuff, and then still doing rebel ball at the end of the day. I've played a lot of football in my life. I've worked out a ton. I have run a ton. I have never had full body cramps, save for once in my life. And that was during a high school Ole Miss football camp. It was some of the most intense football I've ever done in my entire life. So I thought that was pretty wild. And that's something that he would like never do nowadays. Ever. But that was old school O. As far as miles go, I have a very not safe for work story. I will try to keep the cursing out of it. So one time we were in a Friday walkthrough, and these are pretty serious affairs, but I have problems with that a lot of times. And Coach Miles is sitting there, and he's talking to us about something. Man, I'm like a senior at this point, so I'm like, whatever. Yeah, we got this thing. We know what we're doing. And he's like, and I want you to get like 8-inch splits or like 12-inch splits. And I don't know where this came from, but I heard inches or whatever. And then so I was like, oh, so about the size of my. And you can imagine what I said next. And like the room froze, and his back was to me, and I could see him kind of freeze. And he just slowly turned and looked at me, and he was like, "Tiva, do me a favor, shut up right now." And then he made me get out and put PJ in where I was. So yeah, that was pretty dumb. That was pretty dumb of me. But like I said, the joke popped into my head. It was just word vomit. I couldn't stop it, and then next thing you know, I'm in trouble again.
T-Bob, I'm highly impressed of the career path that you have cut out for yourself, coming from pretty much a famous family there in Louisiana, with everything. But if I'm not mistaken, was Coach O on the same team as your father at Northwestern State?
Yes, so they actually have an incredibly close relationship. They went to high school together and won state in high school together.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's South Lafourche High School down in Cutoff, Louisiana, true Cajun country. Then my dad went to Northwestern State. O went to LSU, hated it, left, was back home working. My old man's like, dude, come up to Northwestern. Let's go. Come to Natchitoches. She'll play right away. He goes up there. They end up being college roommates for a few years, and then they've both gone on to do what they've done in the NFL, which is pretty crazy. Or, just in football, considering they both came from these very humble, cut-off Louisiana roots. So, although, it wasn't – I did not have a relationship with O growing up until, kind of in high school when he got bigger and bigger coach jobs and we started recruiting. But, I mean, definitely him and my dad, any of his weddings, like all that kind of stuff.
What was it like growing up as Bobby Hebert's kid? I mean, I'm sure you had some fun times in the Superdome before and after games, but
interestingly, though, I don't really remember the Superdome. I was born in '89, and he went to the Falcons in '92. So all of my older sisters have those memories. All of my football memories are in the Georgia Dome and Atlanta Falcons, and just the interesting thing is, though, when you're a kid, you don't really have that perspective, right?
Right.
So what's dumb about it is what really stands out to me, even though now I realize we do all this awesome stuff. Like, after games, I would get to hop the fence and go down on the field and then go in the locker room and all these incredible things. But what stood out to me was just that in the locker room, there was a Gatorade machine that spit out cans of Gatorade, a vending machine, but it was completely free. You didn't have to put money in it. And I was mind blown by that. I would get to that locker room and run straight to it and just start smashing the button and watching the Gatorade start tumbling out, I felt like the person at an ATM where the cash is just spitting out at them. I felt like, oh my God, look at all this Gatorade I have. And canned Gatorade at that, so rare. So as dumb it is, that kind of really stands out in my mind. Even though, look, I have a lot of perspective on just how helpful that was for my entire life, because just growing up around football, the lessons that he could teach me about football, both about O-line specifically, but also just greater, he is an invaluable, inexhaustible source of advice and football knowledge. And so having those lessons passed down were obviously, it just gave me a huge advantage, I think, on the football field throughout my entire life.
What is your dad doing these days?
He's doing radio as well. He does radio. He's done radio for a long time now for the New Orleans Saints. He does sports talk 4 to 8 p.m. over there in New Orleans, and yeah, they love him. He is huge with the Saints fan base.
Oh, I absolutely believe that. I absolutely believe that. So we'll kind of wrap it up with things. What is the next step for T-Bob?
I don't know, man. I'm very happy. I have my 2 kids. I'm chilling here in BR, and we'll see. I can't pretend to know where all this Mia stuff goes in these next few years with how, like we said, right? I mean, I came on here, said I host a radio show. Check us out on YouTube, right? So, like, I don't know where all this goes, but I'm just having fun with it, and and we'll see.
Well, with you being a former football player, what are your thoughts about what's going on up there at Vanderbilt with Sarah Fuller? Are you a fan, not a fan? I mean, how do you feel about that whole situation, T-Bob?
I mean, I love it because obviously I'm a father of 2 daughters, right? And I want them to have these examples of kind of things they can do and barriers being broken down. Look, man, I think if you're going out of your way to be upset about Sarah Fuller, I just don't have time for you. I mean, like the amount of how does it, if you were sitting there upset about Sarah Fuller, I got a couple questions. First off, how is it affecting your life in any way? When's the last time that any of us gave a damn about Vanderbilt football? Don't act like you care about Vanderbilt football. Secondly, the other part is like, if you're worried that like, she's getting it for free or she's not working hard, please understand that all college athletes, not just football players, devote their life to their craft. And when I tell you these soccer girls, I would never want to do the workouts that they have to do. They are horrible. Same thing with gymnastics. Same thing with volleyball. Everybody's working their ass off up there. So she absolutely deserves a shot. She kicked the extra point. Just made of her own merit. Like, I am all behind Sarah Fuller. And if you're not, dude, just relax. Just relax a little bit. Come on. It's Vandy.
Yes.
My last question for you, brother, is will you please come back and join us again?
Yeah, absolutely, man. This was a lot of fun. Absolutely, Heath, Stingray. Thank y'all for having me on. This was great. And Stingray, again, you look great, man. You look awesome.
Thank you, bud. And if we don't talk to you before then we hope you have a Merry Christmas.
Absolutely. Merry Christmas, y'all. I got my Toy Story Pizza Planet mug right here.
All right, T-Bob, I'm going to go and prepare you the next time you come on. I'm going to have some Disney questions. I don't know if I'm going to go with princesses or not. It's going to be something related to Disney Plus.
Hit me with it. Hit me with it. I'm all about it, dude. I'm down. And anything Star Wars as well. All right, y'all. Well, yeah, my wife's saying I got to go. So y'all have a great day. I'll take it easy.
See ya.
Thank you. All right. Hey, man, I'm having internet issues, so I'm about to refresh. I'll be right back.
All right, Steven. Oh, wow. T-Bob Hebert coming on the show today. What a great interview that was. As the kid of the Cajun Cannon, that's got to be kind of serious. And, for a lot of kids growing up in that situation, they're always in their father's shadow. T-Bob has cut out his own thing. He didn't grow up as a quarterback like his father. His father, one of the most famous and beloved Saints of all time, and Bobby Hebert. But, he's gone his own route. He stayed in his home state of Louisiana, and he's cutting his own path. He's doing media as well, just like his father. But T-Bob he is his own man, and you've got to respect that, being such a young guy that he is, making his own path. So major props to T-Bob for that.
Absolutely. And we want to thank him for joining us now. Before we go, I do want to do one more game, and it was actually the game that you went to on Saturday night. What were your thoughts about the game in Starkville?
Well, it was a close game for most of the night. It was a soccer match until the fourth quarter. Neither team had scored a touchdown. Only the kickers had scored the first 3 quarters. So it was all field goals, all kickers, a lot of defense. Both offenses were moving the ball. They just couldn't cash in at times. There were a couple of 3-and-outs for both teams. But
Yes.
I thought the game really changed. Mississippi State had Auburn pinned way back against their own goal, and I believe it was a 3rd and 7, a 3rd and 8, and Gus called a timeout, which I was like, why would he waste a timeout right here?
Yes.
And so, but drew up a play, made it happen, got a huge gain, and went down the field and scored later on that drive. So, if he didn't call that break in the action, and that was just good coaching on Gus Malzahn's part, it really was. Another thing that I noticed, your older football coaches, they absolutely love making teams burn timeouts. And Mississippi State showed that they were going to go for it on 4th down, and it was very interesting. It's like, wow, they're not going to kick the field goal here. They're going to go for it. And they were trying to get Auburn to burn that timeout, and Gus didn't buy it. And, of course, they run the kicking team on last second. They run 11 off, 11 on to kick the field goal. And then they were running short on time, and they had to burn a timeout. So Mike Leach was trying to get Gus to burn a timeout, didn't. And then called a timeout. They were a critical timeout. Set up for the field goal, and then they missed it. And
Yes.
I thought that was a play that took a lot of wind out of the sail for the Bulldogs. So I thought those were kind of the 2 key moments there in the second half that really kind of turned the game in favor of Auburn. So Gus Malzahn, the one thing I'm going to miss about Gus Malzahn, and Auburn fans will probably know what I'm talking about, when Gus is playing a team that's playing good football or has been hot, and a team that is an underdog that you're kind of scared to play. I shouldn't say scared, but an underdog that can beat you. Gus, when he scores first, will go for 2.
Yes.
And he'll have a 2-point conversion play already drawn up. And then, and even when the other team scores, they will try to go to 2 to catch up. And almost always, like clockwork, the other team doesn't get it. And now they're chasing points for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
And so I've always been thoroughly amazed and shocked and admired how Gus Malzahn used to do that. And he usually does it like once a season. He'll pull that out and put that on team. So I was so impressed with that. And I hate that we're not going to see that anymore out of Auburn. I think Auburn pulled the trigger a little too early on this. I do.
Right.
But I also understand that Auburn, they don't have strong leadership over there. They let the boosters do what they want to. And that's why Auburn's Auburn. We used to see this problem at Alabama, and Nick Saban came in and squashed it all.
Yes.
And so, the alumni kept trying to run the program and this and that. That's why Alabama really wasn't doing much of anything since Gene Stallings on. They weren't doing much. So whoever Auburn picks up, they might have to get someone that the big boosters don't like, and that's just going to be part of it.
Well, let's listen to a quick soundbite from Mike Leach about this loss to Auburn.
Well, I thought I thought Auburn's got a good defense, and they have most of the year. And then I thought we missed some opportunities. I thought that we had some self-inflicted wounds. It's almost like the worst thing happened at the worst time type of thing for us. We'd move the ball and then, have a guy wide open and then all of a sudden not protect, or, protect pretty well and guys get jammed at the line of scrimmage, or, then I'm sure Will's got a couple throws he'd like to have over again. Some of those were a combination of protection and routes clearing and things like that. And, we've just got to fight through it and improve as a team. It's the same thing. Of course, nobody really thought when you started this season that we'd play Auburn nearly this close. So you guys were certainly in for a pleasant surprise there. In our case, we're kind of reeling from the disappointment of not playing as well as we could have this game.
And I completely agree with that. But Heath, I want to get your take on this because earlier we asked, and I asked Dan Wolken about the SEC wanting to flip flop and change the calls of games. Being there in the stadium, what were your thoughts on this call right here?
It's funny. I had my family with me. We were all talking about this. I had my mother with me. My son, who is really getting into football, he's at that age where he's starting to really grasp the rules and things. But, where we were sitting in the replay that we kept seeing, and it was this replay right here, I was kind of like, I thought personally he did not create targeting there. I didn't think that was targeting. I thought he did lead with the shoulder, but he didn't hit the head.
Right.
Now the wide receiver is unprotected, and now it's a gray area. Now you go through with everything, and now you need a PhD in officiating to figure this out. And of course, they're still going to get it wrong no matter who you ask. One fan base is not going to agree with the call no matter what. But I thought the right call was made. But again, I had a terrible look at it. I did not have great replays to look at it. Of course, I didn't have an on-field view, and I sure didn't have the referee's view that threw the flag. So, I didn't know what had happened there. But by the replays that I saw, I didn't think it was targeting, but I also will say I thought it could go either way.
Well, let's real quick, because I pulled up the audio from former Vanderbilt quarterback Jordan Rodgers on the call. So let's go back to the highlights and listen to his take on it, because he actually thought it was targeting, and then they took it away.
And look, when it's a defenseless receiver, it doesn't have to be crown of the helmet. As long as there's an indicator, which it seems like there was, he lowered his shoulder, lowered his head plane there, initiated forcible contact to the head or neck area. That's by the book right there. This should be targeting, right? See the indicator. That's what they're looking for. Leaning in, lowering the helmet there. It doesn't have to be crown of the helmet because it's a defenseless player. So forcible contact, now they're going to be looking at, was it chest? Was it neck area? That'll be the determining factor. I think they will say this is targeting.
After review, there is no foul for targeting. Number 13 may remain in the game. 4th down.
That is just such BS. If I'm calling it, man, that is just awful. I mean, he almost took that guy's head off, and they're going to sit there and say that's not targeting. Yeah, I don't buy that. Once again, they're protecting their certain teams in the SEC office.
Yeah, I see John Stringer's thing. It doesn't have to be head-to-head to be targeting, John. It could be leading with the shoulder and making contact with the head, or it could be leaning with the shoulder or helmet,
right,
or any part of the body to a defensive player. If they are defenseless, they can't do it. I also see Paul Cade's comment,
yes,
and it could have been a late hit. It could have been unnecessary roughness.
yes.
I agree with that. I personally, from my point of view, I thought it was clean. Again, but I didn't have the best view. As far as everybody there at the stadium when it happened, how you could see his neck pop there and whiplash. The first thing I thought was like, oh, that's got to be targeting. And when they started showing the replay, I was like, well, his shoulder, he did lower his shoulder, but it was, on the front of his body. And so I thought it was clean.
Yeah.
Again, I could actually see that call going either way. And here's the funny thing, Stephen. If you put that call up to every single review official in America, and it's being reviewed, I think it's going to be close to 50-50. That some will call it targeting and some wouldn't. So, again, I could see that call going either way. But I will have the soundbite. Go on and play the clip of what Mike Leach said about it.
If you give me $10,000, I'll give you the best explanation you've ever had in your entire life.
Mike Leach was
Typical
asking
Mike
about
Leach, man.
yeah, he was asked about the targeting call post-game press conference. Said, I guess the fines and the fees are a little bit more in the SEC than they are in the Pac-10 or Pac-12, Pac-14, 16, whatever they call themselves these days. But
Yes.
out in the Pac, I believe it's $10,000. Here in the SEC, it's a $25,000 fine.
Yes.
So I'm sure someone told Mike about that already, and Coach Leach will ask for $25,000 for an explanation. But obviously, Leach didn't agree with it, and rightfully so. He's sticking up for his players. Even if you think it is or isn't, you stick up for your players. You can let them know that you care about them, and you stick up for that call. But, yeah,
Man,
it's interesting.
I've got to say this, though. Marks is one tough son of a gun.
Yeah.
Because Will Rogers has let that man out to dry more than once. He did it twice in the Auburn game. He also did it once in the Georgia game and the Ole Miss game. How that guy keeps getting up is beyond me. If I was Marks, I'd go over to Will and I'd be like, okay, you have got to quit hanging me out to dry. This sucks.
Well, it's not the only person that he's hanging out to dry either. Yeah. Some of his receivers have really gotten hit on some routes.
Right.
I remember Peyton Manning came down to Oxford one time and was watching Eli play. Peyton had some time off, and I remember they interviewed him during the game, and I thought it was so interesting what Peyton said about Eli. He said, hey, what are you most impressed with? Because Eli was having a great game. And he said, the one thing I'm impressed with is probably something that y'all don't even consider is that he's taking care of his receivers. He said, he's putting the ball in places where his receivers aren't getting hurt or have a chance to get hurt. And so I was so amazed by that answer. And I think that's something that young quarterbacks have to learn. And I don't think they learn it their first year. And yes. So, when you start having your top running backs or your top receivers leave the game because you put the ball out there and you open them up for hits, you'll learn pretty quick that you need those guys around you.
And they may actually stop. They may actually stop running the right routes because they know that you're going to leave them out to dry.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how Will Rogers is moving forward. Again, along with Mississippi State and all the teams that had first-year head coaches, I count this as year zero for all of Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, year zero. Sammy Pittman at Arkansas, year zero. Coach Drink up in Columbia and Como, year zero. Yes. Mike Leach there in Stark Vegas, year zero. I mean, you didn't have a spring.
Yep.
And, you're trying to install your offense and all the craziness that's been going on. And then on top of that, some practices and some games you have certain players. Sometimes you don't due to someone tested positive or contact tracing or whatever else or opting out. I mean, this season was just crazy, to say the least. So I don't hold any of these coaches or their records to them. Sadly, unrealistic fans do. And, unrealistic fans get heard more often than the realistic ones. And I don't know if you blame the leadership on that or who to hold accountable for that, but that's an issue.
Definitely. All right, man. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Stingray Show. We went a little long today again. We've turned into the Marathon Stingray Show these past few ones, but we do hope that you have really enjoyed, especially today's show. And we actually have a confirmed huge guest for the show on Friday. So, Heath, should we tell them about it?
Let them know, Stephen. Let them know now.
Absolutely. Well, we are very excited to announce that Friday on the Stingray Show, the one, the only Dory Noka from the SEC Network will be joining us live on the Stingray Show to talk all things SEC, the SEC championship game, and of course his Tulsa Golden Hurricanes this weekend.
And we haven't confirmed, but we might have another person from the SEC Network that you hear his voice quite often and used to watch him play a good bit. But hopefully you'll be shocked of when our next guest comes on. It's DJ Shockley. So
Yes.
we're waiting to get confirmation from DJ. We haven't got it totally complete yet, but things are pointing good right now. So yeah, DJ Hidari for a Friday show. That's a big show for us.
Yes, absolutely, and especially after we had T-Bob and Dan Wolken on earlier today. So I just wanted to, say thank you all so much for watching the show, and have a great week, and be safe. And as always, tune in right back here on Friday afternoon for another big show of the Stingray Show. Guess what? You don't want to miss it. Have a great evening.
See you then.
The dogs and Stingray are coming for you. This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Good afternoon, Mr. Feinbaum. Stingray here, and I'm about to shoot the bull with you like all the Auburn students do down at Auburn. Worst defense ever! So without further ado, here is the biggest Alabama going for the field goal. The kick is up. It is away. It is no good. Chris Davis bringing it out of the end zone. Oh, he's got blockers. Chris Davis up the sideline. Here he goes. Here we go, guys. Dobbs back to pass. Launching the ball. Jennings, he's got it. Jennings, he's got it. Touchdown, Tennessee. They shocked the dogs in Sanford Stadium. Are you kidding me? My God almighty. What an epic way for the Tennessee-Georgia rivalry to end this